these are the two smaller boards that I'm making, and the great thing about these is they are just wide enough to fit, just narrow enough to fit inside my thicknesser. So before I do this and send them through, I want to find the flattest face, and for that I'm going to use my planer bed. It's just about wide enough to get a good idea. You can see here, that one's rocking, so that's not very flat. If I turn it over, put this face down, that's pretty much flat and stable. I've already pre-chamfered these edges as I did earlier when I was hand planing them. It's very important when you're planing end grain with a machine to take very fine cuts again, so I'm removing no more than 0.5 mm with each pass. Okay, that went quite well. There's a little bit of breakout on the end here, you can just see, and there are a few small gaps in some of my joints unfortunately, but I think I can hide those with a bit of glue and some clever techniques. I'm just working away on the last board and this flattening here, and after my third board, which was about the same time as I planed up the two smaller ones, I came to a realisation I could have done this a much easier way and saved myself so much work with the hand planes. Basically, these boards, as I said earlier, these boards are too wide to go through my thicknesser as they are now. But what I could have done, quite simply really, is just to split the board in two so I could have one glue up of 3 strips, 3 rows, and a second glue up, the other half would be 4 strips, say. And I could have fed, something like that basically. I could have fed one half through, the other half through my thicknesser, and that would have flattened them by planing off both sides. Then I could have brought both halves together and included them up as one whole. But there you go. Woodworking life is a learning experience in my opinion. So on each board now I have 2 flat faces, and both of the long sides are pretty parallel as well, the long edges. Now what I want to do is to even up these ends where some of the boards are protruding further than others. I'm going to do these by hand as well with a hand plane, but first of all I'm going to chamfer the corners again. On some corners I've already suffered some breakout from planing earlier, but it's better to be safe than sorry, you know. And just a case of feeling for the high spots. There's a bit of glue here I want to remove first of all. Okay, this one's high mostly across the centre. It actually gets higher in the middle in fact. So I'm going to start off taking some stop shavings. Gradually, carefully working my way down, keeping the sole waxed until it's flush. Also I'm trying to keep it even across the surface here, so for example I've got more material removed from here and it's still a bit higher on this edge, down this side. So it's looking better. I'm deliberately trying to stop short of the ends here in order to minimise that risk of breakout again. If you really want to, you You can get your square out and check it for square. That's not bad actually. A little bit out there, but that face could be different if they're not parallel perfectly. Take a shaving for that maybe. That can't be far off. Again, just sight down. Make sure it looks okay. I've been playing around with some scrap timber to get an idea for what I want to do at the end of these boards. Because I want to cut out here, like this, to get my fingers under to lift the board up. The idea is that then you can use both sides of the board quite easily. And I start off with a small radius cove cutter, half an inch there. So 5/8, and I've set it on a 3/4 inch radius cutter, set to a height of 5/8 of an inch. And you'll notice here I have two sets of stops on this table. One for the start of the cut, like so, and one to set the length at the end so I don't cut too far. Also, using a cutter with a 3/4 inch radius is going to ask a lot of any router, and as I'm cutting end grainers again, it's going to be quite risky. There could be some breakouts, so I'm going to fit a 12mm false fence, like so, which limits the depth of cut to about half roughly. Make my first cut, remove the fence, complete the cut with the second pass, and hopefully that'll get good results. I'm left with just a little bit of splintering and breakout on these edges, but I can lose that with a little bit of sanding because the edges are quite sharp at the minute. finish these boards I'm using a organic walnut oil at the customer's choice. It's just a case of simply wiping it on with a paper towel. I'm going to leave it for 15 minutes to let the oil soak in and wipe off the excess. I'll leave that overnight for the first coat and apply a second one tomorrow in the same way. I'm not going to have enough here. If you look very closely at these cutting boards here, these two smaller ones, I've got some very fine cracks between the joints here, and I'm going to now attempt to fill these with cyanoacrylate glue, otherwise known as super glue to you and I. Now that these boards have had one coat of oil, I'm confident that any excess residue glue is not going to stay in the surrounding timber. On top of that, I have some sanding dust from my sander that I can use to try and get a good match. Now, everything I've read about superglue suggests that it is safe for food contact as long as it's cured properly. So I'm going to do this now. I'll leave it for a good few hours before I come back and give it all light sanding in the areas, and then I'll look at applying a second coat of oil. Before I apply the next coat of oil, I'm just wiping down the surfaces with a tack cloth to remove any dust and residue maybe on there. I found that using a rag like this old t-shirt here is ideal for kind of applying the oil and for buffing as well. I did try using kitchen towel paper last time on the first coats, but I found that when I was sort of wiping away the excess, it would leave these little residues in the grain. It was quite annoying to have to sand out again. But the cloth rags are much easier, much better. So I'm now at the stage where I'm ready to package these boards to be collected by the courier next week. And as you can see here, my router table is going to assist me. Okay, and to start off with, you can see I put a layer of shredded paper in here. Now, it does make a huge mess for the recipient to have to pack this away, but I'm a great believer in recycling, and it's a good way for me to get rid of this rubbish without chucking it in the bin. So, now I can lay my first board in there. On top of that, I'm going to put a layer of brown paper. As you can see, with 3 boards in the box, that leaves a bit of a perimeter around the outside. I can fill this at the ends with one of the smaller boards, like so. Unfortunately, there's not enough room at the other end to fit the second one. But I can still fit 2 more boards down the ends here. Plenty of paper, fill the gaps. Before I seal the lid with a hot glue gun, I need to print out my invoice and put that in here as well. Now, with all 7 boards inside, this box weighs a staggering 25 kilograms. In a way, that's quite fortunate because that's the maximum load that one person can safely lift, according to the health and safety regulations. Now, to get a courier quote for this, it might sound quite expensive. And if I was to go direct to the Royal Mail, sure, it would be extortionate these days. But I went online to one of the comparison websites and I found a quote for only £15 or so. That's first class, next day delivery, so I was quite impressed with that. So it's at this point I'm going to end the video and also this series on cutting boards. I've really enjoyed making these and I'm glad to have made something for a customer. I've had a great response so far from the first 2 videos, so thank you to everyone who's watched those, everyone who's clicked like and subscribed. My number of subscribers has gone through the roof recently and I really appreciate that. So again, I just want to say thank you for your support, thank you for watching this video. I welcome all feedback you might have. Please like, please share and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Yeah, thank you and I'll see you again soon.